welcome to this, our second session of the Gossamer Diary. We are reading book 2 of the 3 that make up the diary today, or we have read that today rather, and we're going to talk about it. This, in my opinion, is the most action-packed of the 3. Just a little bit of an overview of this section of the diary. This specifically covers the years 969 to 971. And many scholars actually believe the mother of Michitsuna started writing her diary in the year 971, which is the major crisis point in her marriage, because at this point, the voice that she chooses for her narration kind of loses some of its omniscience in a sense. The space between when she's writing about events and the events themselves are very close compared to in the first book. There's more of this sense of like looking back on the past. So, I mean, it's a little difficult to make this statement for scholarship because a lot of scholarship of medieval literature is speculation since it's just so old, but scholars do think that she started the diary in 971. Sorry. This work also, or this part of the work also shows the development of it as a novel, which mirrors the development of the author herself as a Buddhist. We can see this in her pilgrimages to various temples, and she ponders a lot about her spirituality and how her philosophies of life that she's been brought up with mirror her current situation. In this section, there is also a lot more poetry, or sorry, there's a lot more prose than poetry than in the past section. There was a bit more poetry included, so there's more emphasis of the narration, which is quite interesting. There's also a lot of people when they read this section, they also start to notice that there is this constant sense of like rise of excitement that usually doesn't amount to anything. Like there's a lot of, oh, it's the beginning of the year and maybe Kanei will come see me, and then that doesn't happen. And, it's very sad. But that is really permeating this part of the work. There's also this recurring trope that I've called I am not in harmony with nature. There's a lot of descriptions of the natural world and like the seasons and the progression of the seasons, and they are juxtaposed with the author's kind of stagnant sense of her life. And this is a trope that's very common in Japanese literature of the time. We'll talk about it a little bit. And then also just an interesting fact that I thought would be cool to share is this section, or there are sections of this part of the diary that are very difficult to translate because classical Japanese as a language already is incredibly vague. And then the voice that the mother of Michitsuna takes on for her narration is so very difficult that sometimes translators don't know whether or not she's trying to speak in the first person or the third person. So Seidensticker usually goes with the first person, but there is this vagueness of translation, which some translators have a very difficult time trying to justify which choices they make. Okay, so one of the temples that the mother of Michitsuna visits is Ishiyama Dera, which is, of course, a very famous temple in Kyoto. And I wanted to talk about it a little bit to refresh our memories. This is a wonderful, on the left here, this wonderful painting from the collection of scrolls called the Ishiyama Dera Engi Emaki from the 14th century. And it's the scene in which the priest is pouring water on the mother of Michitsuna's leg. And then this on the right side here is a wonderful print by the Edo period artist Suzuki Harunobu, which depicts Murasaki Shikibu, the author of the tale of Genji, at Ishiyama Dera in the very famous scene that I'm sure most of us are familiar with, in which she is looking out on the waters of Lake Biwa and looks at the moon and the reflection of the moon in the water and is suddenly inspired to write the tale of Genji. So this is specifically Murasaki Shikibu depicted as fidelity in the series 5 Cardinal Virtues from the year 1767. And I also really love Suzuki Harunobu as an artist, so I wanted to share that with you as well. And I believe The Museum of Fine Arts in Boston has a wonderful collection of Suzuki Harunobu prints that they send out on loan sometimes. So hopefully it will come back so we can see them. They're quite wonderful. I also wanted to highlight this trope, the I am not in harmony with nature trope. It shows up a couple of times. The more famous one is specifically this one at the top here. Spring renews everything and only I grow old. This is a reference to the 28th poem in the Kokin Wakashu imperial collection of waka poetry from the early Heian period. And the poem itself from that collection is birds in their hundreds twitter in spring as all things are renewed, and yet for my part, far from renewed, I am only older still. And in the Japanese, this is Momochidori saezuru haru wa monogoto ni aratamare domo ware zo furiyuku. There's another example of it that I included on the bottom left here. The snow is as the accumulation of unhappy years. I wrote, the snow melts away and I am not so favored. Some of the sections of this book are just so beautiful, it makes you want to rip your heart out, in my opinion. So, and I think that's one of them for me personally.